Welcome to everybody joining us. My name is Amy Sessions and I'm editor and associate publisher of Emirates Woman. In our series In Discussion With, we'll be joined by the industry's leading experts, incredible women of influence, and the global luxury brands who inspire us. Today's guest is Maral Artinian, founder of MARLI New York. Welcome, Maral.
Thank you, thank you. It's such a great thing to be in Dubai after this lockdown. I think it's like when I got on the plane, I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually traveling again.
I wanted to start at the beginning. I'm sure most of the people watching know your brand, but for anybody who doesn't, you were born into a jewelry family, right? Tell us a little bit about how you kind of came through that and ended up founding MARLI New York.
So I was born into a family that loved jewelry. So ever since I was a child, I was always surrounded with jewelry. I was surrounded with like revolutionary design, and I used to spend a lot of time in our store back then and in our workshop. And of course, growing up, and I started like working in and visiting our workshop more often. And then, of course, like I started creating passion for and the love and for the attention to the details and the techniques that my family used in the workshop to create jewelry. Everybody asks me, so did you ever dream about becoming like a jewelry or launching your own jewelry brand? I said, I don't know. Back then, the generation that we were living in, it didn't provide us with this, of course we dreamt about it, but then it didn't provide us the opportunity or, to think that you can have your own jewelry brand. So obviously I started pursuing that, and I left my country and I started pursuing that. And I guess this passion that I had in my childhood, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was like another thing that I always had in me. Because all my entire family is entrepreneurs. We don't have doctors, we don't have engineers. So we all have started doing our own businesses. So I was kind of very drawn into that. So the entrepreneurial background and the jewelry background brought me together. And then I wanted to create the jewelry brand.
At what point, because I think there are many people out there who probably have that feeling, who have probably not taken yet the leap of faith from maybe climbing the corporate ladder or maybe working for other people. What was that final moment for you where you decided to start? Because I personally love to read a lot of books on like psychology and business building books. I find it super interesting. What was the moment where you decided, instead of thinking about what it might look like, to actually just begin the building blocks, to actually start? And how did you start that?
So I have to say this, I felt like I was never able to work for somebody, and I always wanted to have yeah, it started from there, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think I have enough patience or but of course, I'm not saying it in a way, because you learn. Obviously, I worked in advertising, and I'm always proud to say that I worked in advertising, because this is also gave me a lot of knowledge and experience in branding, and this is also another passion that I have. But I always there was always this something in the back of my head, I can do more and I want more. And I have this experience. I even actually studied psychology, and I went to study psychology because I felt I'm going to break the pattern in the family, and be more of following a profession rather than being an entrepreneur. I tried that. Yeah, but it didn't work. There was always this the back of my head, and I'm you have all this experience, and then whenever I come back and see more jewelry, and I'm I love it, and I love the technique, and I love the innovation, because throughout the years also I saw the innovation, and I saw all these modern ways to produce jewelry, and I was no, I said I have to go back. And then I started putting my thoughts together, and it was actually an interesting time also, because I was traveling a lot. And I was thinking okay, I attended a lot of trunk shows, trade shows, and I was okay, I have to do something that is more related to me. And then I saw a lot of women, and there was the industry started changing. and the purchase behavior started changing. And I saw a lot of women, more and more, they're becoming self-purchaser. And I was thinking, and I said, wait a minute, there's an opportunity for, you know, a woman like me to be able to launch a jewelry brand for this dynamic and independent women who are always ready for what's coming next. So I was like part of that experience, you know, like I was very much like involved in that process where I saw like how women are changing, you know, in terms of like just like their behavior in terms of how they shop has changed. And I was like going into that era. And this is when I said, and there weren't a lot of like women to women jewelry brands. And with my expertise in, you know, in the industry in terms of jewelry manufacturing, and with my expertise and my experience in the branding and the luxury business, I combined this together and I decided to just take the leap of faith and then launch jewelry brand, MARLI.
I think MARLI is such a beautiful combination. For me, it's a particular combination that I like, which is classic and edgy at the same time. It feels very cool. It feels like you can wear it to, you know, something in the evening that's a very special occasion, and it's not out of place, you know, next to the likes of other classic high jewelry brands. You know? I think it's an amazing ability to have created something like that. And you talked a lot of women self-gifting, which is really interesting. Other than these strong women, what else did you really have at the core DNA of MARLI from the outset that you really felt that the brand must, or who it must speak to?
So one of the most important core DNA in MARLI is the simplicity in the design and the simplicity in the terms of like how the customer wears the pieces. I've always been very simple, like since I was like, you know, teenage, let's say. I mean, if I had an occasion, you know, we had a lot of weddings and stuff, I always chose like the most simplest piece in the store or design something very simple, because I never liked like, you know, this bespoke. I mean, I appreciate the bespoke pieces, don't get me wrong, but like I always liked more simplicity. And, you know, the era has changed also. You know, women started wearing high heels and like, you know, there was this like self-purchase power. And I always thought to myself, and I'm like, women can buy their own shoes. Women can buy their own bags. Why can't they buy their own jewelry and be able to accessorize themselves with those pieces and not to leave it on an occasional basis? It was very important for me to associate MARLI as like creations that you can wear morning to evening, and to red carpet events and to dinner. So just kind of like it becomes part of your daily life and daily routine without having to, you know, spend a lot of money or like, you know, have huge budgets, and then just like something to incorporate in your style. This was very important for me. So going back, like, you know, from a design perspective, like, you know, the DNA is very linear, very simple, and very like, you know, always has like a timeless essence. So you also don't have it, like, you don't feel like it's out of trend or it's out of like, you know, I wanted women to always like, you know, go back to their wardrobe and even to their jewelry boxes and say, oh, I'm still in love with this piece and I can still layer it with other pieces. So that was a very important part of my, you know, positioning and, you know, the DNA.
It's interesting that you were saying, because I also very much feel that MARLI is exactly that. I'm quite fussy with pieces that I personally like, but when I invest, I tend to just keep them, and they're something that I feel that I would pass down. Also, when you're gifting for a special occasion, be it yourself or somebody else, I think they're really the perfect miss, because they aren't something that's going to date. I think it's a very clever brand positioning, and it's definitely something that, you know, I worked for a long time with some of the incredible women that we have on our covers and in the content for Emirates Woman, and we met a couple of ladies from the ruling family here wearing your brand, and it was such an amazing thing to see, because they're wearing it because they've gone into the store, they've bought it because they've fallen in love with it. And, you know, the age range was slightly different. Yeah, one was sort of mid-30s, one was very young 20s. But you can see them layering it up. And I love to see brands that we like to champion on the women that we also like to champion, which is such a beautiful thing. How would you say that the brand itself has evolved since it began, in terms of ethos or in terms of, I mean, you cover, you know, you're global. How have you managed to scale the business but retain such a feeling of luxury?
One thing I learned throughout my career, our customers are very important, and we really want to take care of them. We want to give them the experience, and we want to keep this experience growing as the brand is growing. And I think your team is very important. I think the team believing in the vision and believing in the brand, and then that combined, when the customer comes to the store, they see how happy they are. I think it gives them that extra confidence, or that extra energy that they are in the right place. So I think this culture helps the brand to grow and to spread.
So true. I mean, in terms of what we do on a daily basis, it's just not possible without a great team. It really isn't. And what you're saying about believing in the vision, I think you have to hire people or surround yourself with people who understand what you're trying to do. I wondered, because we interview a lot of amazing women from this region as well, in terms of they're always very interested in incredible women such as yourself, mentors, building businesses. This generation here of especially the younger generation, they are going forth and they are building their own brands, they are building their own careers. It's such an amazing thing to see. I often ask, when we speak to women that have built something from the beginning themselves, and I find it amazing that anyone can wear all these hats at the same time. Do you find yourself, obviously you're more drawn to the creative side, because the result it speaks for itself, but in the beginning you had to balance many things, and I'm wondering how do you hire for the things that you feel that you're less inclined to do, and did you surprise yourself in kind of having to do certain roles that you then realized that you were good at? It's interesting to see if you're drawn to the creative as well as the business side of the business, and do you think that you have to do that to be an entrepreneur?
At a certain point, of course, you have to do that. At a certain point, you have to infuse your vision and then your ideas and your footsteps into every single aspect of your career. I mean, obviously, since the beginning of when I opened the office and the business in New York, I didn't have people who were surrounded by me from the industry. So I had to actually bring them into the industry, and I had to infuse that passion of luxury into their soul. Not everybody came from the luxury industry, but I think I have one of my team members. She said, the way I spoke about my business with the passion. She comes from a law background. She was able to integrate into my vision and understand it. And then she joined me, and she's still with me until today. So you really have to be wearing multiple hats at the beginning, but obviously at certain point you can't, because you'll be compromising yourself and your brand. So it's good to find that your strength point, and then find out what is it that complements you. For example, it's the operation, or it's the sales, or it's the customer service, or it's the creative. Obviously, creative for me is everything, because I feed a lot from creativity, and it feeds my soul. I feel like I can express myself through my brand and through my my store, my the creations of the jewelry. So I do express myself. So I always drawn to that. But at the same time, if I'm in the store and if I see a customer, she's wants something, I'm always okay, what can I do? At certain point, they tell me okay, no, I don't want to interfere, but I can't, I'm okay, what can I do? So and that's why I say I'm very hands-on until today. But again, at certain point, I have to focus on my creativity, my creative direction, and to be able to grow the brand and to grow myself as a person as well.
One of the things that I spoke to Newbie about, it was about a year ago when we did the beauty issue, the first beauty issue last year. And everybody had gone into lockdown, and we were all working from home. She was working with Net-a-Porter from home. And we spoke about the ability to separate, when working from home, business and family life or such. I wonder, it's really for me personally, quite difficult to separate it, because as you have a real passion for what I do, and I don't necessarily want to switch off. But I am also aware that some of the best ideas come when I have switched off and I'm not thinking about work. And I wanted to ask you, if it's, are you able to find any balance? If you are, how do you do that? And what do you recommend in kind of this constantly connected time? Do you have any things that support you? I know some people are into meditation, some people go for a walk, some people don't disconnect at all, but it's really interesting for our I think for our readership to know how to find some sort of balance when you're scaling a business successfully.
I definitely agree. I mean, I do disconnect. At certain points I have to disconnect, because it's not, you can't, you have to have like that during lockdown, right? Obviously in New York as well, when the weather is cold, you can't really go outside and you can't do much. That was like the hardest thing for me, being in lockdown during the winter. During the summer, it was fine because I was able to go outside for a walk. I have a dog as well, so I used to go for a walk with my dog, and then that gave me like, I love nature also, like that's why I love water. I always live close to the water, so it gives me that, that tranquility. So I always choose a place where I have this escape, that I can go for a walk, and I have greenery around me, because I feel like it also like, releases a lot of like energy from me. A lot of time, again, like, you are not able to separate exactly, especially during lockdown, because you're just sitting there and working one meeting after the other. So when I felt like I'm overwhelmed, and when I felt like I'm not able to think or create in a proper way, so I started going into yoga. I chose yoga, actually. I am not able to do meditation. I'm not a meditative person. I think I will get there one day. I don't know when.
I find it so difficult, honestly.
It's not.
I have meditative practices. I would say that there are things where I get in the zone and it feels like a meditation to me, but when I sit down and try to meditate, my brain is resisting this, and I know therefore that I am exactly the kind of person that should be learning this. But it's not an easy process for me.
But this is actually very interesting, because what I learned about meditation, that you can't really shut down your brain, because it's part of the organ that keeps on working. So it's very hard. When I I heard this from, a guru, because I'm also very spiritual. And I was like, it's true, because your brain is part of your organ and you cannot shut it down. It needs a lot of practice. Don't forget, like I've never done a meditation in my life. So my brain is used to work like constantly. So for me to get into that, I really need to take time off, and like a lot of people do, to really train your brain, because everything is about, everything is about training your brain, training your body, because we are like a whole entity, and we cannot change from one day to the other. But I love yoga.
Even for the mind.
Yes. But I enjoyed yoga. So usually what I do every morning, I decided like, I wake up, but I take 2 hours for myself, because also like I have like, international business. So whenever, the minute I wake up, I look at my phone, and then obviously like I have all these messages, especially from Dubai. Yes. And then I go like, okay, I put my phone aside, and then I do my yoga. I do my routine for 2 hours without any interruption. And then I start my meetings. And then in the evening, it depends. Like I'm also, another thing that really disconnects me is movies. Like I like to watch a good movie, because it really takes me away from the world. Yeah. And, I got the opportunity to travel a couple of times to the beach. The beach is another escape for me that I love. So, you like I said, you get into this adaptation mode, that you have to see like, how you can adapt yourself. And I found this balance between work and business. But of course, work is always occupying most of my time. Like I'm here now in Dubai. I've been here for almost like 10 days, but it's a different type of work, because I didn't stop working, like I'm working on a constant, like, yesterday I was with my team until like 1 a.m. in the morning, and we're talking, and we only talk about work. We don't talk about anything else, like we talk about work and this and that, but I don't feel it's work anymore. I feel it's part of my life.
I agree. It's the same for me, where, this is what I say, you don't want to switch off. You're when I come home sometimes, I'm constantly kind of looking for other brands to feature in, other issues. I'm, you know, sometimes on Instagram, for example, for me, I know I work in very similar to how the buyers, friends of mine, work when they source new brands, is that they're browsing and looking at recommendations, and you get 3 levels deep, right? And then you find something new. I feel as long as it's not intrusive, actually, it's okay to stay switched on in that way. I also have got, as I've got a bit older, better at knowing where my maximum is, and getting to a point where I go, okay, no, today not. And I think that's something that comes as you kind of as you work, basically. You know, you learn what is enough and when you can push it and when you can do more. And I think best results come from sometimes when you've also had a day off and you come at it, you know, 120% the next day.
Exactly.
You're carrying everyone with you. A lot of the time when you're leading something, you have to be the resource, energy resource for other people as well. And I think that's really important, that you have to look after your own reserves.
Yeah, you have to feed yourself. You have to give yourself this time off so you can be able to feed everything around you.
Yeah,
it's very important.
I agree. In terms of future growth for the brand, I know you have some big plans in the GCC for MARLI. What does the rest of this year look like for you?
So we have 3 stores that are going to open in GCC by end of 2021.
Wow.
Yes, and then 1 store in Paris. Actually, we're opening a store in Paris as well. That's going to happen. I mean, the store in Paris was supposed to open last summer, and unfortunately we couldn't because of the pandemic. So we're going to open the store in Paris by end of this summer, which I'm very excited about, because I was there and I saw the store, and it was something very exciting. So in terms of GCC, we're opening 3 new stores. One of them is in Abu Dhabi, and one of them is in Saudi, in Kingdom Mall, and then we have the 3rd one in Qatar in Place Vendôme. So this is actually very, very exciting. I mean, of course, I'm looking forward to come to the region again in the fall, to do all these openings.
You're super busy. That's amazing. Fantastic.
Yes.
And I also think for anybody that hasn't been able to travel, it's so great that you are kind of opting into many parts of the region. Yeah. Do you find a lot of your sales are coming through online? One thing that I saw in the last, I would say, 5 years is that the sales of fine jewellery have only grown, especially during lockdown, watches and fine jewellery. And I think before that, we started to see the growth because as clients began to, understand the new brands, trust the new brands, they would, for example, then order online. Now I feel like because of COVID and they haven't been able to buy in any other way, that's only escalated. Have you seen a much larger proportion come through online as well for you?
I mean, I would say I saw a big portion coming through online. I wouldn't say I'm excluding the retail, because retail has grown as much as the online. So I consider them a little bit separate entities, because the growth, like you said, the growth of jewelry sales has really increased. And in general, luxury, I think really grew a lot, like in the past 1 year. Actually, we launched our e-commerce in 2018, but it was picking up very slowly. It was kind of like, okay, let me test the e-commerce sort of thing, So yes, we saw a huge growth in our e-commerce business.
Fantastic.
Yes. It's very nice. I mean, it's a very nice experience, like I said, to receive all these messages and seeing, it kind of the customer is coming to you also, you're seeing, the in-depth of what they like. So it was very interesting to see that, when you are in lockdown. So it was a fun process.
There's a relationship there, when you're involved like this, they're really supporting you.
Yes.
Supporting you. Women here, they love entrepreneurial women that are succeeding. It's just amazing with women supporting each other.
Yes, I always say MARLI is a jewelry brand from a woman to a woman.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. We're very happy to have you here. I wanted to just ask you one last question, because this will come out when our beauty issue is out. In terms of, it can be your personal thoughts or from the brand perspective, we asked everybody in this issue and that was involved with this issue, this is the beauty issue, what is beauty to you?
Well, I work in the industry where I see a lot of beautiful stuff all the time.
We're very lucky.
I'm very much involved in beauty. And I think for me, like, you know, there's two types of beauty. Obviously, we have the beauty of the world, the nature. And especially like after this lockdown, I mean, when I go to nature, I feel like the world is just beautiful itself. Like, you know, we are so blessed with the flowers and the sun and the sky. So I really feel like, you know, this really something like, you know, I appreciate a lot. And then the beauty of people, I think, you know, it's much more important. Like, I feel like, you know, a woman or a man, like, you know, you always have to take care of yourself and appreciate beauty as it comes, because, you know, we're always like, you know, age is like, you know, something we can't control, but then you have to appreciate your beauty, you know, all year round. Like, you know, whether you're young, whether you're, you know, more mature, you have to appreciate it. And I think it's something also you have to feel it and not only see it, to appreciate it more.
We actually asked, when the issue comes out, you'll see we asked some incredible ladies that we know from Sweden and beyond the same question, and they answered different variations of something similar to what you've said. That is basically along the lines of, you know, appreciate your beauty no matter what version that is. Yeah,
Of course.
and I think that's an amazing thing, and to hear women say that and to speak in this way is such a nice thing. I am thrilled that I'm going to be meeting you in a couple of days in person. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I think you've just created something fantastic. So I look forward to seeing MARLI go from strength to strength.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to see you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody who's watching this show. So I'm very, very excited to be in Dubai. I'm very excited to talk to everybody, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Maral. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.